The topic of today will be identity, and I want to look about on something and talk about something that I think about a little bit more. I mean, not necessarily lately, but like in the last months and year, always comes a little bit up. Identity, and I perceive like identity for me in my mind, identity just from its word, just from its meaning, it's about my identity, like who am I? But a lot of times, especially with how much identity means to people, how much it means to us, how important it seems in our society for us to have an identity. My impression is that with an identity, it's not about who I am for a lot of people, and even for myself in some way. My impression is that with identity, and why the loss of identity, and why not having an identity, and why that becoming less meaningful in a way, or why it's so difficult for us if our identities lose something, if we are losing that, why that is such a bad thing, and why identity is so important. I think is because identity is not about an individual, it's about a group. I think, or what I perceive, my impression is that identity is not about who am I, but it is about who do I belong to. These are my people. We have like an identity as a group, and when I have this identity, I belong to that group with that identity. And it's an identity of a group that I just put on, and I just take, and I just believe in, and with that I group up, and with that I have other people that help me and that stand with me, and where we have we against others and all of that stuff. I think it's a tribe thing and the group thing, where the identity is like the theme, the marketing, the story, the narrative that we tell ourselves to bond and share a group and have people that we connect to, and where we can say I belong with them and I belong to them. And so the loss of identity, or when identity somehow gets attacked or something, it's we lose the group. It's a rejection. It's a loss of the meaning in a group, in a place. So that, well, if I don't have the identity, I don't belong to them, or they will reject me, or I don't have the group, I lose that. I think that is the fear and the struggle behind it. I don't think that for so many people, or that at least that's my impression more and more, that identity is a lot more about the group and not about the individual, more about how I as an individual belong to a group and how I fit into others, which is not my experience, to be honest. That's why I get that impression. I find it a little weird. I mean, not weird, it makes a lot of sense. But that's not what I understand under identity. For me, identity is very much who I am. And I think I have this perspective because I don't have a group. I don't have an identity of I belong to these people. I don't belong to anyone. There's no one that I really belong to. Sure, I have friends, a few at least, and I have a family where, well, to all of them, I wouldn't say I that strong belong to them. From at least from the feeling, sure, I belong to my family and I love them, but we're also not that close, and there's a lot of space between us, and it's very difficult to get together and feel connected and even express our love to each other. And so in my life, I just, for a very long time, mostly I'm alone, even if I'm surrounded and I live with my family. That's just how I feel. I don't have other people in my life. I don't belong to anyone. I don't belong to a group. I don't belong to, yeah, I don't belong to groups. I'm just alone. That's my life. And because that is my life for, at this point, decades, pretty much, I don't have this feeling of, well, I have a group. I don't belong to anyone. I'm very much in that sense an outsider. I'm on my own, and I don't have anyone that I belong to. I don't have anyone who I can connect to in that way. I don't have anyone where I get the meaning from. I have to give that all myself. I have to rely on myself. I have to be with myself, and I have to learn how that is okay for me in many ways, how I can live and have a better life and ideally grow also out of that and find a way to connect to others. But at least at this point, I can't really see myself having a normal life and or ever being someone who will also fit then into this framing of my identity is a group. So that's a lot of times a feeling with like labels where I have to like think like for example, I don't consider myself a gamer because I think gamer is a label that is an identity and that is a community and a group, and I don't belong to that group. I don't belong to any group very much. The label that I've put myself on is probably a programmer, where probably a lot of programmers are also a little bit more alone and are just thinking about problems and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons why I'm very hesitant with calling myself any of these names or labels, because I feel like these are kind of identities and they don't fit me. I don't fit in them. I don't necessarily want them. Because for me, my identity is, again, where I said at the beginning, identity is about who am I? Who am I? And that's difficult to know. I have spent so much time with myself, not just so much time with myself. I've invested so much time and work into knowing and understanding myself that I do very deeply understand myself, and I still struggle to really know who am I? What is the core of who I am? What are the things that make me me? Where if they are gone, I'm not myself anymore. There are things, and I've experienced that, but I have also experienced that in very different ways, especially with my sickness, where I really lost parts of myself, where I consider myself that, well, I died. I'm a different one. And in a way, I died 2 times this in my life already. I have 3 phases at this point where I kind of consider myself a very different person, not necessarily different. I'm still the same person, but the one I was before is not the one I am anymore. And this shift, this break, that is quite fundamental. I had that at least 2 times in my life so far. But even there, I see my identity, who I am, is still under that. And with all the experience, with all the knowledge, with all the understanding of myself, that I dare to say is probably a lot better than most people, especially my age. But I dare to say there are probably quite a lot of people who never in their life understand themselves as well as I am, or as I do. And I can say, what is my identity? What is really the core of myself? If I strip that away, I'm not myself anymore. That's insanely difficult to really say, not just to, something like that. But like, that's it. That's just it. That is like clear. This is my identity. First, a lot of things, it's just not that clear. It's fluent, it changes potentially in what is important, what is not. But I also think that is, in a way, an issue of perspective. I like to think at this point that I have an identity, but my identity in who I am, first, who I am can only really be answered with looking at all that I am. So that means with all of my life. That means at this point I'm 34 years old, all of the 34 years. Who am I as a person, as a being in all of the 34 years? But that's not even it, because who am I? I can only really say, well, after I'm dead, which I can't say because then I'm dead. So I kind of by design can't exactly know who I am. Others might not even be able to say that, but the information for that to really be actually said can only exist after I'm dead, because then you have 100% of my life, and then you can look at 100% of what I was, and the 100% of that what I was will be who I was or who I am. That will be my identity, my life, and what I made with it, and what it is my identity. And from that perspective, for me, very much, it's not just, first, it makes it, by design, who I am is unknowable in many ways. All of the things that I can say about this are just approximations. They're just approximations. I don't know the other word that I wanted to try. Again, English vocabulary. So who I am with like my whole life, that also for me means I'm 34. Even with like current life expectancy, I should have around 50 more years, or at least 40, something around that time. That means actually my life should be longer than it was, so I'm not even half through my life. That means also of who I am and what that means from just the time perspective and from the impact that it can change on my identity. I only have like a third to like 40% of my life and of my identity in that sense, and of the who I am. The rest is in the future. I don't know it. It's for me to make, but that's how I look at identity. Identity is not something that I can always precisely know. I cannot always know, or potentially never know, who I am really. Like actually, like precisely. If I have to make this a true statement, who I am, what is my identity, I can't say that. And I can't say that because that is a little bit unknowable and very uncertain. But I take comfort in the knowledge that even if I'm not always able to see my identity, I have one. And not just that I have one, I make it. And I can form it. And I will be the person that I want to be. I hope you love yourself. Have a nice day. Oh, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. That was fun. That was fun.